Good morning. How are you doing?
Fine, and you?
Good. Started out with, you had such great news this morning in regards to faith, and then your husband following suit as a financial mentor. Are you there? Oh, I'm thinking we're going to have a poor connection today. How are you doing?
I'm fine. The lines are getting clearer. I think it's better now.
Okay. So you got my materials then on the PPCo, right?
Losses, potentials, and
I know we said that I was going to walk you through that today, and I am going to still do that. And I can do that with one of your missteps. But I also thought maybe it would be good to use faith as well, because it'll give you an idea or a way to help them. Should they come to you with a problem or a challenge, you'll be able to just go right into this affirmative strategy. It's a wonderful tool, and it's so I gave you the first part is this facilitation sheet, right? Which is from my facilitation book by Dr. Firestein, and then I also sent you this card, right? Which is just an index card, which I do because sometimes you can just write it on an index card or a piece of paper, and you can hand this out for your next session, because this is going to be one of your exercises in the next session. And so you could have them write it out, themselves, or you can have it prepared before session. It's up to you. As a facilitator, do you want to have these materials done so that they don't have to take the time to write them? Or is it something that you'd like them to be engaged in? Okay. So just to bring you up to date on the recap and session 2, I'm in the process of building that. And I had to take some time really to think about how to actually build it, because I'm not going to build it and create it the way I normally had done in the past, because it was just for me. But because it's going to go to you and also to Ronnie, and we're going to use this at the end to summarize, everything. So it took me a while really to think about it. So I think I have it in a good way of doing it. And when I send it off to you, you'll let me know what you think. So it's going to take a while. I thought it would take a little bit less time, but it's going to take a while. But I told you would have your first session, your session 2, 1 week in advance, and you will. Even if it's by Saturday, you will have everything you need. So I don't want you to worry.
okay.
I typed up our debrief when I debriefed you as a facilitator. So, and I'm almost done with that, and I'll send that off to you when it's done, so you can also see it. And it's good to keep track of. And if there's something else that maybe your husband wants to add after you review it with him, tell him to please feel free to add to it, and let me know. But all right, so great news about Faith, that you finally found her. And did you actually get to speak with her?
Yeah, I spoke with her. I was speaking to Jacqueline, and they told me I could get to her in 30 minutes because she does not have a phone. So I waited, and when 30 minutes came, they called, and I spoke with her for quite some time, and she told me all of the story I wrote to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard all of that from her.
So, she seems to be a little. So, how is she? I don't want to assume. How is she?
She said we'll be meeting, but I don't know when. But from her voice, she's fine, and from what she said, she's happier being out of that place. But she still has a lot of uncertainties because she does not know what the future holds. Things the money she sent to the parents might never come back to her, and she really does not know if that money will be used for anything concerning her.
Right. But she's happier, and so is she safe with her uncle?
She's safe. She's safe.
And where is she in relation to you? Like, is she far from you or close to you?
I told, because I spoke to her through Jacqueline's phone, and I told Jacqueline to go look for where but I know that area should spot out the house where she lives, because we'll be having meetings and we might not be able to get to her since she doesn't have a phone, so they can pick her from there. Okay. Each time we have a meeting.
Okay. Is she aware of our next meeting date of April 20th?
Yeah, I told her, so she'll be there.
So Faith hasn't done the EQI yet?
Yeah, she hasn't taken it, so I think she'll take it at 28.
Okay. Is there any way you'll be able to meet with her prior to the 20th to bring her up to speed?
It's possible, yeah. Because I still have a long time to the 28th. So I'll probably meet with her.
Okay, now did you say the 28th? 28 or 20?
I say I have time to the 28th. I have about 2 weeks more that I could meet her within those 2 weeks to bring her up to speed.
Okay. Now, what about, just to pop off of her for just a second, what about Lawrence? Have you been able to locate him?
No, I've not made any efforts to get to him yet. So I'm going to try again. I'm going to try. I got only to Bridget, who is in Yaoundé, and Bridget is the only person that can give me information about Lawrence. So I'm going to call her again.
The only reason I ask is because if you're going to meet with one, like Faith, to bring them up to speed, if you can, it'll be easier for you if you meet with, whoever is going to continue, join the cohort, just to save you some time and effort, so you're not doubling and tripling your time and efforts. That's all.
It's okay. Then I'm going to try after this call. I'm going to make some calls out there to see how we can meet those that were not there. How we can bring them up to.
All right. So just to get back to Faith, I want to put Faith through the PPCo tool, so you get an idea of how to use it. Okay. So today you told me that you talked with her, you found her, she left her domestic servitude situation. She made $630 US dollars for the last 5 years of work, which means she was in servitude from the age of 10 up to 15. And that she is now living with her uncle, but that she is somewhat, I would say, maybe frustrated or disappointed that she wasn't educated or taught a trade during those 5 years. She's currently at her uncle's, residing with her uncle, doing nothing, correct? Okay. All right. So the pluses, if you, and I know this is on your computer, so I'm going to walk you through it, so, because I'm not sure if you can see it. But you always start with the pluses. Remember when I debriefed you last week, and you were like, well, I didn't like this, and I didn't like that, and I said, all right, we'll get to that, girl, but, first we're going to start with the good stuff. And that's what we do. We start with the good, the positive, because we don't want to get weighed down with the negative and bring our mood or our energy down, because then by the time you get to the good stuff, it's like whatever, So with the pluses, you can ask the person or someone or something about the situation questions like, what did you like? What went well? Or you could just improvise, like with this situation with Faith. You can say, what's good about what happened with Faith? What are the pluses? And I'm going to start just to show you. And I'm going to say the pluses to her situation, even though she wasn't educated in those 5 years, and even though she wasn't taught a trade in those 5 years, and even though she only made $630, which is basically like $130 a year for 24/7 service, you know what? She left She's currently free, right? She's free. She is safe, right? That's a plus. She's safe. She's free. She was able to voice her disappointment to her uncle. And so it seems to me that she still has a sense of inner strength, and being able to use her voice to tell her uncle how unhappy she is. She, another plus is she had an uncle who listened and took her in. So she seems to have an uncle who's, I don't know what the word is, but who's at least receptive to having her stay with him. What other pluses can you think of?
She has some kind of resounding board, like the uncle. Mm-hmm. Then also trusting to call us back after the long gap. Mm-hmm. It means there's some kind of hope between us. Then being able to let go the money and not make any mountain out of it too.
Okay. So we don't have to, when we do this tool, this exercise, and use this tool, we don't have to spend hours on a plus, on a good. You just want to get you want to get a minimum of three things, and up to 7 or 10 things. It really just depends. You're going to gauge your group, right? Or person, whomever you're speaking with. Okay? So that's the pluses. You think of the good. What's good about the situation or with what happened? The next one is potentials. And under potentials, it's, what might happen? What might this lead to? And we always start these with the statement starters of it might, okay? Because it's open-ended. This is, we're open, we're thinking outside of the box, right? So I'm going to start it out with, what's a potential of this situation? Well, it might allow Faith to go to school, right, in September. It might allow Faith to it might allow Faith to realize that she wants to be an educator when she grows up, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It might allow Faith to become a tutor until she can go to school in September.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you think? It might what? What does it have the potential, this situation, to create?
I think it has a potential of having used as a peer educator. Mm-hmm. Issues of trafficking and modern slavery. Mm-hmm. She can become a peer educator. She could also. It's also an opportunity for her to maybe learn something. Since she might choose to let go her dream of going to school and rather learn a trade, which will still be good. Mm-hmm. There's also potential for her getting a more mature mind. Mm-hmm. Being able to care for the child, her own child, or close or family member's child with time.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of good, and there's a lot of potentials that might come out of this situation. Even though she was, in servitude for 5 years, there's still light at the end of the tunnel, right? There's the potential, the opportunity, right? So then the next thing is concerns. And concerns are things like, what are you worried about? What are you concerned about with this situation? And I'm gonna start you off with this, and we use things like how to. Again, we use certain statement starters. So one of the concerns for me is how to keep Faith from being trafficked again. Okay. how, how to keep Faith optimistic about the future. What about you? What concerns do you have for her?
I'm concerned she might not be occupied in the uncle's house, and she might not be in clothes like she used to be, and that could make her vulnerable, and that can expose her to become a teenage mother or whatever.
So how to keep her from becoming how to keep her from becoming pregnant? Okay. So then we go into, and I'm doing this really fast, this tool. You would definitely gauge the group and really feel as though they really want to sit in one of these categories, okay? And until they're done, you don't really push them. And, if you feel like they still want to talk or add things to these, you let the group. But I'm going through this quick just to get you an idea of how to use it, okay? So then, go ahead.
It's a very beautiful tool. The moment I saw it, and when you're talking about faith, there's a need for us to use it on her and get outcomes.
Mm-hmm. So then we have the O part of the PPCo, and the O is overcoming concerns, right? So you might have one concern, you might have 3, you might have 10, there might be a lot. So, we actually did 1, 2, 3, 4. So what you do is you kind of put those separately, right? And I'm going to see if I can find a video on this to actually show you from the International Center for Studies in Creativity to see if they've actually have a video on this facilitating of it, right? So then you take each one of those concerns and you write them on a piece of paper, right? So I'm going to do that. So let's pick how to keep Faith from being trafficked again, because that was one of your concerns as well. You said how to keep her occupied and safe so that she doesn't venture out or become, a victim of a target, really, a target of traffickers. When they see her, a young girl, they're gonna pick her up, right? So I'm gonna say how to.
I said they might think she has experience in doing that in domestic servitude, so they want her all the more.
Yeah, right. Yeah, how to keep her safe from traffickers so she doesn't become labor and or sex trafficked. Okay, so like I wrote this down on a piece of paper. See, can you see it? So I wrote that down. So that's our concern, which is actually also a challenge, right? So this falls into creative problem solving and how to solve a challenge, right? So here is where you start to ideate and brainstorm. Okay, so you're going to write ideas. You're going to ask your group for ideas. And this doesn't have to be anything these are just simple ideas, right? They don't have to feel as though it's a struggle. Every idea is a good idea. You don't want to say, oh, that's not a good idea. You don't want to say, oh, that is a great idea. You want to make sure that you have an affirmative environment, an affirmative place, a positive atmosphere for when people start to ideate or add ideas for how to overcome this concern, okay? So I'll start just to model it. How to keep her safe from traffickers so she doesn't become labor and or sex trafficked. I'm going to say, let's say, get her a job And when I say a job, and I don't mean her being labor trafficked, I mean like actually allowing her to have a job where she makes actual money. Get her in school. Homeschool her. We talked about that before because I know you can school. You have a lot of education as a teacher and all of that. I'm going to throw out another idea. Have Seraphine teach her. Okay, things like that. So, what ideas do you have to keep her safe from becoming, labor and or sex trafficked again?
Yeah, teaching her is one of the greatest idea we have. Keeping her under a tutor, and so that when she leaves from the house, when she does little work, chores at home, she could move to a teacher and come back to read and stuff like that. Then if the salon is already in place, the training center, she could move from home after maybe doing the dishes and stuff like that. She could move from home directly to the salon where she will stay there from maybe about 9 in the morning till 4 in the evening, and from there she's coming back home to maybe read her book and something like that. So we will need to enroll her to be trained.
So you want to train her in the hair salon, get her trained in hairdressing?
Yeah, I think before September comes, then I'm considering that her age too is a good age to go back to school.
Mm-hmm. In September.
Because when we started with you, she was 14, so I'm just assuming she should be getting 15.
Okay.
So she's still a good opportunity to go to school and pursue her dreams, other than those who are above 20 and all of that. But if she insists on taking a trade, then that will be fine.
Might we think about or consider, here's an idea, to have her become our first trainer, as in educator, our first educator who educates the children or young adults who don't have the education, the secondary education, or even the primary education, and yet they need to learn how to read and write. All levels of these trafficked survivors. So might she be, she could become our first teacher. Have her become, the teacher at, Mercy Seed. It would be one of our other sustainable blocks, which is, we talked about, opening up an educational element or sustainable block, as we call them, but to offer education to these people, right?
Yeah.
So you start with, and then you can generate so many ideas, and really you just wait until the group is like out of ideas for these. And ideas aren't really, when you're facilitating this, they're not really conversations, okay? They're like a few words. Like, she could become a teacher, train her in hairdressing, homeschool her, get her in school, have Seraphine teach her, get her a job. You know what I mean? These are like little snippets of ideas, and they're just coming at you. After that, then you can start converging and thinking about how you want to resolve that concern, okay? And I'm not going to put you through all of that today because it gets to be a little heavy. And really what we just want to do is show them a change of perspective, a different way to look at a challenge or a problem. I don't want to weigh them down on how to actually flesh it through from start to finish. Because in order to do that, when I do that with you, I want to be set up like maybe in my studio where I have flip charts and I can actually walk you through the whole process, which is going to take actually a couple of hours, right? So for your next session, I just want you to introduce them to a different way of thinking, a more positive approach. Right? Like we started with this, and then you could go to the next concern, right? How to keep her occupied and safe, or, how to keep her optimistic, how to keep her optimistic and motivated toward her future. That's a hard one too. And actually, that's something that Ronnie brought up in her observations. And that was how to keep our cohort motivated so that they'll stay throughout the year and actually, or even longer. So that was something that I highlighted, and that's something I'm still thinking about how to talk about in our next session, so that we can give them a little bit of something and how to stay motivated. So let's do this. I'm going to do this again, and I want to take your misstep, and I want to walk you through this again, this exercise again. Okay. So what was one of your mistakes? Something happened and you were just like, wow, that didn't work. That didn't work so well.
Well, one of the greatest mistakes I ever made was in a relationship.
Okay.
Way back when I was young, there was this relationship I was in. My parents knew the person, my mother, my siblings, and they loved him so well. So we needed to marry. When I traveled to school back in Nigeria, he was back here. So we had a misunderstanding, and I broke the relationship on phone and got engaged into another one while I had not seen him. So it played terribly on me and just devastated me. I was so depressed. And when I came back from school, he was there waiting for me, for us to continue and be married. I've already gone into another relationship, fearing to break here and fearing to come back here. And the other one I got into did not work until I finally married my husband. So my life got messed up in some kind of way. Those two relationships. So if I had known some things, I will not break a relationship from a distance out of anger, and I'll not go into another one immediately.
Okay, so let's start with some pluses of that. What did work from doing that? Like, what did you like? You went away to school. If I understood this correctly, you went away to school and you broke off the relationship from a distance, correct? You came back after school and you were supposed to get married. He waited for you still, but you still broke it off. Is that the case?
When I broke the relationship while in school in a different country, and did not wait to hear from him because I had something that pissed me off. Did not wait to hear from him. Mm-hmm. I just thought I could go into another relationship immediately. Mm-hmm.
I'm just taking my dinner out, so hold on. So, what were some pluses to that?
I became some kind of. I could study with a stressed mind. Mm-hmm. I could study with I was so stressed. Nobody knew I was stressed. Sometimes I could just walk out from the class. I remember the dean of students would send for me in the hostel back then in Nigeria and ask Seraphine, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? Do you lack money? What do you have needs? I said, no, I'm okay. And I could manage the stress and get out of that without completely breaking.
Mm-hmm.
So there I learned some kind of stress management. Then I also learned to listen to people. I should not just hear things in the air and kind of take a decision.
Mm-hmm.
I took that decision to break the relationship because someone told me he was having another lady.
Mm-hmm.
So I had not heard from him directly. I got so mad and I said I was not going in for that.
So you stood up for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Then I finally learned that it was my place to see him and know if that story was true.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have room to explain. So I think I've learned to listen to people and to have first-hand information.
Mm-hmm. So, what were some potentials that maybe came out of can come out of that misstep?
Well, like I said, I finally learned how to manage stress because I was so stressed. Then I could, because while in school, he used to support me, send me things, send me these, and he stopped sending those things, he stopped supporting me and all of that, and I could still go on with my studies and complete. Then without the calls, I could do without his calls and so on.
So
then,
go ahead.
Then I finally learned a lesson that you don't go into a relationship while hurting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because when I got hurt, when I got angry, I thought I could just make up to another relationship, and that didn't work out.
So if I'm listening to you, and I'm going to put this in a potentials, it might lead you to teaching others how to manage stress better. It might allow you to teach others in how to get out of a relationship or to end a relationship better. It might allow you to speak to others about relationships. Right? I mean, so you can utilize, basically the potential is you can utilize this experience and pay it forward with others, right? So in a positive way. So like if you see people doing the same mistake, you can say, okay, I've gone down that road. And you might walk with them through that journey and be able to understand,
Yes, this experience made me. There's a book I've written, Maximizing Singlehood.
Mm-hmm.
This built me up to get to that level. There are a lot of things I know that people don't know because it didn't happen just in. This took a stretch of about 2 years while I was in school. This up and down happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of affected my parents and siblings who knew my fiance.
It might even allow you to really teach out interpersonal relationships under the EQI, the competency of interpersonal relationships. It might really allow you to draw from that experience when you're teaching this out, so you can lean on that. So I think there's a lot of pluses to you going through this experience, as well as potentials for utilizing that experience in the future when working with other people, especially young adults going through these kinds of relationships, and with handling stress. Right. And you have to think back, but because this was so in the past, right? So it was quite a while ago. But if you could think back, what are your concerns? What were you worried about or concerned about, say, back then in regards to this?
Also concerned about what my parents could say, what people would say about the relationship just crashing like that, because it was well known to both families. So it was a big concern to me. Then it was also a concern to me, to close friends.
So, how to deal with what people, as in family and friends, would say, right?
Okay.
So I just did you see I just rephrased that?
Okay.
And threw a how-to in front of there, because it opens that concern up. It doesn't lay flat as when you say things like, I'm concerned about what people might think, okay, as opposed to how to deal with what people might think.
Okay.
That then says, okay, wait a second, my mind needs to keep on going. How do I deal with this? Right? So let's jump to overcoming the concerns. How might you overcome? How to deal with what people might say? You obviously did overcome that. So, how do you overcome what people might say about you and what you did? I mean, I'm going to start you off. You know what? You could just ignore them. Ignore them.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I think I learned to ignore, because then I didn't let my parents, his parents, or whosoever to kind of give me some heavy thoughts, some kind of bad name about the situation. So I also did not want to explain detailedly about what happened. I avoided that, because I would have had the need to explain to everybody.
Mm-hmm. So you could remove their negativity. Don't have conversations with them. Stay. You could say, trust yourself, that you know what you're doing and that the decision was a correct decision. Don't second guess yourself, right? So these are all things. How to deal with what people or family would say. Now, these are all suggestions that we just talked about, ideas really, on basically not even confronting them. But what happens if, let's say, someone confronts you? How are you going to deal with it? One idea might be to say, you know what, just point blank be honest with them and say, things like, this is something I'm not talking about it. You can just tell them flat out, I'm not discussing this. Or you can say, you know what, if you want to talk about this, fine, but you put a time limit on it. I'll listen to you, but you also have to listen to me. That mutual understanding, that mutual respect. These are all ways that you can deal with what people say about you. Mostly I just ignore them myself, and that seemed to work for you. And again, we kind of went through this really, really fast, and it makes me a little uncomfortable because we go through it so fast. But I know we have other things to talk about today, but does that give you an idea really of how to handle this exercise in your next session?
It's so enriching. I'll never say if it's giving me an idea. The idea is there. I have a lot of enlightening from what we are doing. I can handle a lot more from different people. So.
And I just want to say with this, it's how your husband said that you were a little rigid teaching out the agenda last time. With this exercise and this tool, it can become very rigid. And I kind of did it really rigid, right? I didn't really have any leeway when I taught this out. When I teach it out, it's pretty rigid so that you understand the mechanics of it, right? But I'm going to tell you, when I actually use it as an exercise with my group, I'm not super rigid with it. Like overcoming concerns, like I said, it's mostly an idea. It's a snippet of a bunch of ideas, right? And not to have too many conversations about it. And it's kind of a balance, because one person can start talking about how to overcome those concerns and just lead the whole conversation and spend, before you know it, 10 or 15 minutes has passed. So as a facilitator, you need to gauge that conversation. And so there's a balance between being rigid and being a little adaptive or flexible to what your group needs, right? Sometimes there's a conversation on how to overcome concerns, and it's a very full conversation, so to speak, and you can sense that the group needs to actually have a conversation about that, right? So there is a balance. This can be a very rigid exercise, or it can be very, very flexible. So two extremes, and you can go from too rigid to too flexible. And so you have to kind of gauge it and find a middle or a balance. I like to do this more flexible rather than rigid myself. So you'll decide. And I think throughout the next couple of weeks, practice this with your husband. Just like I said, you know what? It could be a silly little thing like, I need help around the house. Can you help around the house? A plus. Well, if you help around the house, we get to spend more time together. We can spend more time together. The house will be clean. I'll be less stressed, right? A potential would be actually, it might allow us to spend more time together, right? It might allow us to do something else, like visit friends. It might allow us to whatever, right? Concerns, what are you worried about or concerned about? Well, I'm concerned that if I have to do, all the housework myself, I'm not going to be able to get my other work done, my professional work done. I'm concerned, like how to spend more time with my husband at night, how to spend more time on my studies, how to get all of everything that I need to get done. And then overcome it. How might you overcome it? Well, let's try to make doing the house chores fun. Could we put on music while we do this? Could we dance? Could we, stuff like that. So it's not really it's about understanding the logistics of this tool so that you can do the exercise effectively and efficiently, right, with the cohort. So you can use simple little things to get yourself accustomed to this way of thinking. Honestly, I do it all the time. There'll be something happens and I'm like, well, the good, and it's really just the good. What did this, what could this maybe bring? Do I have any concerns about this? You know what? Sometimes people don't have concerns, or they just might have one concern. It's not like you have to have a whole list of concerns. Sometimes it's tough to grab those concerns and identify them. And if you don't have any concerns, then obviously you don't have to overcome any concerns. But, always start with the good. Always start with where it could lead, which is the opportunity that situation, and it could be a misstep, or it could be a mistake. It also could be a really great thing, a positive. It could be something really great happened. Doesn't have to be a negative. So that's the other thing. It could be, okay, let's say, I got a scholarship let's say I got a grant for this program. Someone just gave me $1 million. Wow, that's a great thing, right? So the good about that is, oh my gosh, I can teach a lot of people. I can quit my other job and just do this. A potential is, oh my goodness, it could increase my trainers. It might allow me to train people from all over the world who can then train others in their respective countries or communities. But then a concern would be, oh my gosh, how do I manage that kind of money? How do I manage $1 million? How do I manage the stress of the task at hand now that I have the money, and then overcome that, would be, well, hire an accountant, hire an assistant, hire people, that type of thing. So, it could be a negative situation. It could also be a positive, because even a positive situation sometimes creates, concerns. It creates stress, sort of like what we're doing here now, right? What a great opportunity that we have with Ronnie and the university for her to do this as a capstone project. But really, there's a lot of concerns, right? Because, how do I teach it to you? How do you then teach it out to your cohort? And it's a whole circle, right? So this is, again, a great exercise to keep yourself in the affirmative, to acknowledge the issue or the wonderful thing that happened, but also to identify that there could be concerns. And let's not just, for me to say, oh my gosh, I got $1 million to teach this, woo, I'm going out, without even a thought behind it, it's going to probably get me in trouble. I need to have the big picture. And this allows us to have the big picture. It includes the good, the potentials, and the threats or the concerns. So that's the PPCo.
Wow.
It's
all about creative problem solving. It's like my mind is growing and growing.
Yeah, there's so much to it. It's crazy, but that's a snippet, right? That's just one tool in our toolbox. That's just one way, one strategy to look at someone who is in despair, or someone who is so elated that you need to bring them back down to the ground, right? Right? They're like, oh, and it's like, bring them down. But then you have someone who's underground and you need to bring them up. So this is a great tool. It can bring you up and bring you down, and it puts you in balance, And this is just one strategy out of hundreds and hundreds,
My goodness, so beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful. And it's like I'm benefiting more from the lessons than the court.
No, they will. No, because when you teach this, that's when you really understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's why I want you to get real comfortable with teaching this before you teach it out. And when you teach it out, they're going to start benefiting. And let's say it doesn't matter whether one person shows up or you have 10. You have that mind who is then going to pay it forward. If they shift their perspective, they shift their mind from negative to positive always, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to then teach that out too. So it just pays it forward over and over and over again, which is a wonderful thing. So, in regards to faith, I do think we need to figure out a solution for her for the time being. I want to make sure that she needs to feel purposeful. She needs to feel productive. And if she can feel that, knowing that she's not gaining any monies, I think that's going to be the bridge till next September, right? So we need to give her something to do that builds that bridge till next September for her education. However, the other concern, right, and we didn't address this before, but the other concern with Faith is how to replace those monies for her parents. Now, are her parents thinking that she's still going to make and need those monies every month? Now, I know that I already said that I would be a financial mentor for her, and send money every month for her, and that still stands. But I have a feeling that that's not gonna be good enough for her. You know what I mean? But I think if I can at least take that away, that worry away, from her that, okay, well, I'm not giving to my family. I need to give, whatever it is, $15, $20, whatever it is every month. If we can take that stress off of her, she can then feel like, maybe we can get her to do something and help. Maybe she's your little assistant. I don't know. Maybe, there's another idea for her to be your helping hand, so to speak. Her to be, someone taking her under her wing, their wing, to show her things that aren't just school. I don't know. I'm just throwing some crazy ideas out there, but if you're concerned that she might be picked off, so to speak, or grabbed, is she really safe with her uncle? Do you know what I mean? When I ask, is she safe with her uncle? Is she safe? Is she going to be not trafficked or picked up or seen as an opportunity for a trafficker to grab? Is he not going to then send her into another domestic servitude situation with the same promise? Is there a way is there a way she can stay with her uncle, still be safe, and we can get her educated or have her give her little jobs along the way until September? You know what I mean?
I'm going to look at the opportunity and speak with. I'll certainly speak with the uncle. I'll get to the uncle and not really speaking. I want to see the atmosphere of the home. I could just come visit him, see how it looks, and because if she will be picked from here, I know she'll be picked to a bigger city. She's taken from Bambenda, she will certainly be taken somewhere to Yaoundé or Douala or whatever. So that will get worse. So I'm going to find out how the atmosphere of the home is. If she wants to stay there, if it's not the best, that I can take her to my in-laws' place.
Okay.
But then I'm also going to look at.
If you find a place for her where she can live, and she's allowed to be free, actually free, and she can be educated in September. She can be, and in the meantime, her job would be working in her job would be being part of this cohort, right? Doing the exercises, doing the home play, doing all of these things and being part of the process. And also with the maybe vision of her becoming our educator, within Mercy Seed, that there's that opportunity for her, depending on, how she progresses, of course, right? Under your supervision and your guidance, and whether you think that she's, moving along appropriately, right? But if you find her a place, I said I would donate, $25 a month. So that should more than take care of her shelter, her food, and her clothing. Correct? Yes or no?
It's going to help her do all of. She'll not be renting. She'll not be renting a house. If not, the shelter will not be. It will not be enough for shelter inclusive. But for her upkeep and dressing, that's going to be okay.
So I mean, when you talk to your in-laws, you can tell them that this is the package is includes help, financial help to care for her.
Okay, I want to also look at the best possibilities because around my in-laws, there's no school around there. But where she lives around the uncle, we've got schools. We've also got here we have what we call evening schools. she can go to school around 4 o'clock. She can study at home and still write her government certificate exams. So I'm looking at at going to school, which is our primary focus for now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also looking at what can enhance that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I think
what can really help, what can be of help. Then here, there's parents also give vocational training. Those who are going to school during holidays,
mm-hmm.
you can still be going to school and learning a trade.
Mm-hmm.
So that when you get to university environment, if you are fortunate to get to the university, you will not solely depend on your parents for pocket allowance and all of that. You could do nails for your friends in school. They pay you. You can dress their hair. They pay you, and you will not be totally dependent. So if we are putting something in her hands, that's also going to support her life when she's in the hostel
mm-hmm.
or wheresoever she gets to tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. So
I'm looking at the best possibility that will suit her now and her future.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because I think the best. So I'm not just going to take a prompt decision, a fast decision. I'll carefully look at the environment mm-hmm. and look at the future we are hoping mm-hmm. for her, because we are guiding her into mm-hmm. a future mm-hmm. that she will get to be thankful mm-hmm. to us and to God.
Okay. That sounds like a good plan. I do love your idea of her becoming or being a peer educator. You know, and she could also do some tutoring if possible. She could even make money tutoring. You know, there's lots of things that she could probably do. You know, she's 15 years old and it's so young, but to be honest with you, you know, she's, as you said before, she has a very mature mind from spending 5 years in servitude and taking care of other children and the house and cooking and cleaning and everything else. You know, she's like an old lady almost. You know what I mean? So, I mean, she's been working like a dog, you know, for 5 years, and she's so young, but she's not. Her, you know, her experiences, her life experiences are way advanced to
many
other 15-year-olds who haven't gone through what she's gone through. So I think she has a lot to bring to the pot, and she has this intense, I think in this intense motivation, inner motivation to stand up for herself, you know, and you know, you got to really applaud her, and how inspiring, really, for her to really, right? I mean, she's basically stood her ground all these years and still didn't fall into anything, you know. I know she was in domestic servitude, but I'm saying she wasn't sex trafficked. She didn't, you know, say, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore, and then become a sex traffic worker. You know what I mean? She stood her ground, and she finally said, you know, this isn't what I signed up for. There's something there with her. There's something brewing in her.
When you hear faith, when you listen to faith, you hear a woman talking out of faith. Mm-hmm. A very mature woman with a mature voice. Mm-hmm. You begin to wonder, who is this? So mm-hmm. strong. Mm-hmm. When I spoke to her, I was expecting to hear a weak voice, some kind of depressed voice, but she was still up high. So it's somebody we should invest everything mm-hmm. into. We're going to invest much into. So
there's something there. There is something very, very, there's greatness, you know, upon her. Mm-hmm. Truly. So it'll be fascinating to see as she grows and moves toward her future, you know, what it is and what God has planned for her, you know. It's exciting.
And there's an African proverb says, when you want to bend a tree, it's good to bend it when it's strong.
Mm-hmm.
If it gets cold, it might crack or break when you want to burn it.
Mm-hmm.
So she's still at the burning stage. You can burn and it doesn't break or doesn't crack.
Mm-hmm. And good news about Jacqueline.
Yeah, she's so that look of hers has changed. The last time we met her in the meeting, she was just all dull, dark on the face, and everything was like going. So I told her, I asked her what she actually wanted. She had a lot of things telling us this, food, that, and so on. She wanted to among the cohort.
Mm-hmm. That's so wonderful. Is it okay if I maybe post about that on social media? About your husband being our second financial mentor?
Yeah, that's why I said I'll send you a picture tomorrow so you could post.
Okay, good. For her medical expenses, $220 to have that operation, correct?
Yeah.
I think
that's what the doctor.
I think that's extremely doable, and I think what we'll need for that is, can she provide any paperwork from a doctor or hospital or something stating this is what she needs, this is her diagnosis, this is her treatment, this is the cost.
I have it. She sent that to me.
Send it to me.
She sent me. Yeah, the scan that was done. The only thing I was not comfortable with is the price was not written on a hospital sheet, like on a receipt. The doctor, after the scanning and everything, they just wrote out a piece of paper. Anesthesia, this will be this. The actual operation will be this, and medication will be this. Just 3. So I have it with me.
Will they? Do you think they will honor those costs?
Of course, it's what the doctor gets. So she will go back to the same doctor.
Okay, just send me what you have. You know, there is a level of trust that has to be that we have. You know, I trust you, you trust them. I then will trust. You know what I'm saying? And if you say to me, this is the paperwork, this is what we've got, then I trust that that's what you've got, and that's what I'm gonna pass through, and I'm gonna send that over to Ronnie, and see if she can have a fundraiser. $220 is, I know it's like a huge amount of money where you live, but here in the States, it's really not that much for an operation of the magnitude that she's having. Now, after the operation, will there be time? Will she need any kind of recuperation time? And you know what I'm saying? What about transportation to the hospital and back? You know, those sort of things.
I gave the net money that the doctor gave. That's exactly what the doctor said that she wrote to me. So I just gave exactly. I didn't put anything like food, sleeping in hospital, transportation. I just gave the exact money for the operation.
Okay, so I need. So what about staying at the hospital? Will she have to stay in the hospital?
I'll find out about that. When she's operated, she could be there for some days. And she might need to pay the bed fee. She might need the bed fee. I don't know if she'll be there for how long. And so if we look at everything, it could amount to, I really cannot tell. But you get to 250 or more.
All right. So again, remember my motto. I always want to set ourselves up for success, not failure. So let's get the big picture here. Let's figure out, if she has to have transportation to the hospital and then to and from the doctor maybe twice after the hospital. She has a bed fee, she has medication, all of that. Let's figure out what that cost is So when I send that over, you know, when you say 220, I think 220, that's it. She's good to go. But she's not. Okay?
No, she's not. She's not. If you had your phone there, it's just I'm using my phone to send what she sent.
Yeah.
So,
send what you send what you have, but then I need the rest of the stuff. Figure out the rest of the cost, and we'll get it taken care of. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, please tell her that we're working on that. Are you there?
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, I'm there.
Okay. All right. So, in your text to me, did you tell me when Jacqueline? Oh, shoot.
Yeah, I'm getting you.
Oh, okay. Just the video is paused. Okay. So, in your text to me, because I can't remember, did you tell me when she'll be starting school?
Today. She had to start today.
Oh.
But she went late to pay in that, so she'll be starting tomorrow. The date is on the receipt.
Okay. And how long is it?
It's 3 months for secretariat duties.
That's awesome. And she will have a certificate after?
Yes, she'll be given something to attest that she went through the lectures.
April, May. So she'll be done. So like by July, she'll be finished.
Yes, she'll finish by July, and she's not. She's one of the core people we have in the court in Mississippi. Mm-hmm. She's always there helping and so on.
Mm-hmm. That's just awesome. I'm so excited for her, and I'll be even more excited when we can get her some medical attention.
Yes, she's so thankful and so excited.
Now,
I've just sent it to me.
What did you do?
I've just sent in what she sent to me from the doctor.
Okay. Are you gonna? Okay, yeah. And his name and everything. He's from like a hospital, right? Or he's not from Doctors Without Borders, is he?
No. She went to a government hospital here.
Okay.
The form is certainly going to show the hospital where it was done.
Okay.
I'll look at that, clear on it. We're going to.
Okay. All right.
You have your phone there, you could check.
Oh, I'm sure it's there. I don't want to take a chance of messing our video up with my phone. Just so you know, I have videotaped us like I did last time.
Okay.
And I'm going to do that because I don't want to lose, I want to keep track of our conversations. I like to go through them myself to see if I've missed something, or if sometimes it'll initiate some kind of thought or something after I listen to us talk. I've listened to our first video probably 2 or 3 times, to be honest with you. And just picking things up and stuff like that. But I want to make sure that it's okay to share this with on YouTube. Are you sure? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So I do want to speak with you after I send the recap and the agenda for session 2. I want to make sure that you are comfortable with it before your next session. So can we set up a time to speak on? I'm going to say, and if I'd like to have a conversation with you on Saturday. That's if I get it to you before Saturday. Because that gives you 1 full week, so that if you need anything else from me, I have time to get it to you. So I'm going to shoot for Saturday. I'd love to have a conversation with you if you are available. If not, it would have to be Tuesday morning at 9:30. And It just
Saturday, what time?
on Saturday.
Yeah, what time?
Whatever time is good for you on Saturday is fine with me.
I'll be available. We could still keep it at the usual time.
Which is what? What time? 9:30 or?
9:30, 10, whatever.
Okay. Let's plan on 10 a.m. on Saturday, but that's only if I get you your stuff that you need. If not, then
Okay.
then let's have a conversation Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning. You will have this. If I have to stay home all day Saturday and finish this for you, I will. So you will have this by my end of day Saturday, but I'm hoping to get it to you before that.
Yeah, then it's going to be beautiful. This lesson will be better than the one that we rushed over to get them done.
Yeah, and yeah. So I've just quickly gone through, this our chart. This chart, right? So the red, I'm going to take a picture of this for you, and send it to you with the recap. But just so you know, I started making notations, and the notations in red are all the things that you actually taught at your first session. So you can see you actually taught a lot, right? From this chart.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I haven't even gone through everything yet. But we talked about the importance of mistakes. Your husband, when he did the learning outcomes, he did brainstorming, which is part of creative problem solving and thinking outside of the box. By establishing learning outcomes, that's part of gathering the data for our in creative problem solving. It's all part of assessing the situation, and when we have to gather data, right? So learning outcomes is gathering data. When they did the introductions and they had to do their own introductions, that's part of beginning the process of your belief system. That's the process of, hi, I am, this is my name, this is who I am type of thing. And this starts the process of self-identifying with themselves and who they are. A small little snippet, but still just that little snippet or little snippet forward, right? The dreaming is visionary thinking is the effective skill under the thinking skills model. You're also talking about mistakes and failing forward goes to tactical thinking and tolerance for risks under the thinking skills model. Under the leadership challenge, you modeled the way by just facilitating and bringing your own experiences into that session. You modeled the attribute of taking a risk, of being vulnerable, all of these wonderful qualities. You also challenge the process because they realize now that they're no longer trapped, right? They've challenged their status quo, right? That falls under challenging the process, right? You yourself talked about emotional expression and interpersonal relationships in that video that you sent to me under the EQI. We introduced the importance of the EQI and how we measure that along the way. In the savvy approach, you engaged them in the process, which means you had some hands-on learning, right? You engaged them. It might not have been to as much as you would have liked, but you gave them that little piece or that importance of being engaged in the process, which falls under the somatic, which is moving, doing, or hands-on learning. Okay. Under servant leadership, you did that and you didn't even know it. Remember when you said, think of a dream that is part of our community, how we can better our community. That's part of paying it forward and building our community under servant leadership. So we touched upon every single methodology except for foresight, which is pretty. That's something that I need to review with you, and then you can start introducing it. And then, of course, Krav Maga. We didn't really incorporate any of that yet, but when I do my video on redirection of force, I'm going to do my video on non-physical ways that they can protect themselves. Okay, so I'm going to bring that for the next session, just so you know. And these are very simple, basic things that they should just be aware of. So that'll be brought in session 2. So that's why your recap, along with my debrief of you, along with Ronnie's observations, are all taken into consideration for when I recap and also build for the next session. And now you know why I can't say, oh, here's session 1, here's session 2, here's session 3, right? Because it's literally building along the way. This is our boilerplate, right? And we go from here. And by the way, just because we introduce something or taught something on here doesn't mean we don't continue to continue to teach it and hammer it home. You'll see that we teach things over and over and over again throughout the year. Okay.
Wow.
Oh, I know there's one thing I wanted to talk, I needed input from you for, and then I will let you go because it is 9:15. Hold on, where is it? Oh, darn. Did I see a new, you said that there was a person, her name was Florence. Is she part of the cohort?
Yeah, she's part of us, but she's never been coming in.
Do I have her on the ledger? Is she new?
I don't think you have her on your ledger. I don't think she's not on it.
She's new. She's new, right?
Yeah, she's new, but she's not been coming to the meetings. I don't know why I forgot to bring in her name.
Okay, so if you could, oh shoot, where's my ledger? I have it. Okay, here we go. This way you don't have to send it to me. So Florence is new, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have a photo of her, do we?
We don't have a photo. Can we put up for a next cohort, or can we just continue with her?
Yes, you can continue. I want to add her to my ledger. You know, my this ledger that we have for everyone. I need to update it. I sent it to you to update it. Remember, and I also sent you this, which is their attendance, right? So I need to add Florence here. And did she, and I need to, do you know how old she is?
Florence is 15.
15, another 15-year-old. Oh my gosh, you're killing me. Does she have any children?
No, she has no child.
And what's her status? Is she currently being trafficked?
Yes.
And is it labor, sex, both? Or is she displaced?
Pardon?
Or is she just displaced?
No, it's labor.
Labor, okay. Do you know her? Did she take the EQI?
Yeah, she took it.
Okay. And how much education has she completed?
Just primary education.
Primary. Which is elementary?
Yeah, elementary education.
Okay.
Or basic education.
Do you know what her dream is?
She wants to be a hairdresser, something like that. But if she had opportunity, she could still go back to school.
School. All right, we'll work on her dreams. Do you know what her story is, how she was trafficked?
Not now. I'm going to get that to you later.
Okay, let me know. Okay. All right, so then I have that Florence was there last session. Okay, all right. So I have Faith hopefully will be there. Precious was not there.
Yeah. I called for Precious to come in, but it was late. So she'll be in the next session.
Okay. And Bridget was not there?
The teacher went to Yaoundé.
So she's gone?
I don't know if she'll come back. I'll speak to her. I'll try and get to her.
All right, so she might be lost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I told you that we lose them, right?
And I don't know if she was talking to Yaoundé or what happened. I really need to know what happened.
All right, let me know when you know. Mabel was there. Lawrence,
Yeah.
Lawrence, you're gonna talk to. You said try to find. Jacqueline was there. Rufina was not there, and Charlene was not there.
She was not there, and both of them were brought from the same community.
Okay, are we going to see if we can find them?
Yeah, I already spoke to somebody who is with Rufina and took a number that I could get to her anytime.
Okay. What about Sherry?
Sherry was taken to Yaoundé.
So she's lost?
Kind of lost, but hopefully she might come back. But I'll get to her too. I have a number.
Okay. And then I can't pronounce this person's name, but I think that I think she's a part of your core, Mercy Seed Core group. Edwidge, Edwige. How do you pronounce?
Oh, Edwidge, that's a French name.
Edwidge.
I might not also know.
Okay.
Yeah. She came, she took the EQI, but I've not been so close with her.
Okay, so is she going to be part of the group or no? Or
I'm going to find out.
Okay.
But remember, we had the very first call we were working with before she came.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, so she might not be as consistent as those that you first spoke with.
So you'll find that, okay, so before I say that, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 6 people who may join and be at our next session. So you'll want to try to get all of them together to bring them up to speed. Now, if you can't, that's okay. Then when they come the next time, you could ask them if they could come a little earlier, like an hour earlier, and you could bring them up to speed, or possibly stay an hour later. But probably an hour earlier would work better. Or you could meet them on a completely different day. But just thinking about transportation costs, and if they're already saying that they're going to come to the next meeting when you speak with them, see if they can come about an hour beforehand, and then you could bring them up to speed really quick, right? Just bam, bam, bam. Yeah.
It's okay.
And so that's them. And then, what you're going to find is that some people maybe can't come, but they want to still be part of the cohort. And for whatever reason, they couldn't come to the session. Maybe they got sick. Maybe something happened. And so you're going to have to mentor them or facilitate them, I should say, separately, sidebar them in order to bring them up to speed. You're going to have to tell them what their home play is. You're going to have to, bring them over. So you will find that you'll be, have to spend some extra time with some of these people just to, so you're aware. How you do that, you can decide your best way of, what your best process is. I always like to have them come in early on that next session, or I like to, if I can have a phone call with them, I can, just bring them up to speed and issue them the home play. If they had, it's easier for me because my students have emails, they have phones, they're much more readily accessible to me. But they're not with you. So you're going to figure out what your best process is. Okay? So, yeah. And if some of these people have taken the EQI and they're not a part of the cohort, or they're in and they're out, I would still give them the EQI at the end, and then we could see how if there was any kind of progress or not, you know.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that a lot of them, like someone like Bridget, is committed to the cause, committed to Mississippi as a whole, but she traveled to Yaoundé, so if she comes in, then we really need to take her. And I'm thinking that after May, June, a lot of them might show up again. So if they all show up, we'll need to place them and take them off.
Well, it's up. You can bring them up to speed, or you can,
Yeah.
or you know what we could do? We can throw them into the experimental group, which is basically someone who was in a control group, right? You know, they said they were going to start, but then they didn't come to several sessions, and now they're back. That's okay. They can come back and they join in through the process. As long as they understand that they missed all of these sessions, you know, they can either join in at that moment and then they just move forward, right? So there's no additional work really for you. Or you can sidebar them and bring them up to speed and have them all come for a few hours and highlight the essence, so to speak, of the sessions that they missed. And if that happens, you and I can work on an agenda for that and how to teach them that in a highlight the essence kind of way, right? So you're not on your own, and I'll walk you through that. So we'll see, we'll see what transpires, and we'll go from there. That's all.
Okay. It's okay, but I'm hoping to have about 3 of them who did not show up.
Mm-hmm.
Next meeting.
So other than that, how's everything?
Everything is fine. My husband just walked in. Maybe you need to say hi.
Where is he?
He's somewhere here. Let him come. Please come. He's coming.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
It's nice to see you.
Same here. It's been a while.
Mm-hmm. So, pardon me?
How are you people doing?
I'm good. We're hanging in there.
Okay.
So what did you think about the last session? I know Seraphine, I did ask Seraphine this question already, and she gave me some input, but now that you're here, I can ask you, what did you think about it?
Okay, about the last session.
Mm-hmm.
It was a successful session, and it was also very new to the cohort. So it is the approach that was being used was different from the initial meetings that they were holding.
Mm-hmm.
So it was something that was surprising to them, and I think they are also very open to learning and also to get themselves up to level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what did you think about the process?
The process is good.
Mm-hmm.
The process is good. And I think it's just to introducing the process to them gradually, and I believe they are going to come up to the level. They are going to be so acquainted to it. A lot of the practices that were taking place, a lot of the things that were done,
mm-hmm.
are things that always very regular in some kind of activities that I have also participated in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I believe that I will continue to give you people the support as necessary as possible, because those processes are very good processes that can enable people to, enable them to be able to I don't know which word to use, but it will enable them to be able to come out of themselves,
mm-hmm.
and be able to embrace
mm-hmm.
the new trend of what events around them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And thank you for co-facilitating.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. I love doing that always.
Are you gonna do that every session? Will you be helping?
Well, as much as the time is there, I always like to do it. I would like to always become assist because there are so many things I will need assistance. You know, sometimes in some sessions that are often organized, you always have somebody who is acting like a facilitator, and then you have somebody who acts like a resource or like the main person. So sometimes those things like that, we need to be able to separate them, so I can enable to gain some energy and also to regain stamina to take on the next module or whatever. Yes.
Yeah, it's tough.
So that role of facilitation can always be very good to do.
Yeah, we have to incorporate some fun and playfulness and all of that in everything that we do. So we will. That'll be part of session 2. So and icebreakers and getting them up and moving around. That's why the savvy approach is so important, because it's research proves that if you're moving around and you're fully engaged, you'll learn at a greater level and have the ability to retain much more information that's being thrown to you, because really there's a lot of information being thrown in one session. You know.
That's right.
Yeah. So
one of the go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just trying to talk. Those icebreakers you are talking about are always very good. Yeah, and I think that we will, looking at this, the space that we're operating in, I think it is important if we can have some little bit of yes. So we are thinking. I'm just trying to ask about the learning space. This learning space can be able to be improved, so I can enable those kind of practices to go.
So the learning space we refer to as the creative environment.
Yeah. Because the methodology, in order to express and be able to interpret all of the methodology, it will be good. Because actually it was really a good session that we had. I experienced a lot of things in that session.
There's a lot to creating an affirmative environment. You know, that's a creative environment, affirmative environment. So, you know, you want to create like those non-visibles, which are, you know, a sense of confidentiality during the session, a sense of positive energy. You know, they're safe. You know, all of these things that you can't necessarily see, but you can feel. They're part of, you know, a trusting environment. You know, all of these things are part of the creative environment that you refer to as the learning space. If you say to somebody, "Come into my learning space," as opposed to "Come on into my creative environment," which one do you think? If you had two doors, two spaces, one said learning space, and one said creative environment, which one are you going to walk through?
Oh, I think I'll go for the creative environment.
It just shows you the importance of word choice and how to present. You know, the presentation is everything. It's sort of like food on a plate. You can throw food all together in a mush or a mash of yuck, or you can present it nicely on a beautifully colored plate and napkins, all these things. It's more inviting to eat something that looks so beautiful than it is to see just a pile of junk on a plate, right? So when you can create your own creative environment, no matter what kind of environment you're in, rethink it and think, you know what? Okay, this is what we got. Okay, how can I make it more creative? Maybe it's the placement of the chairs, placement of the tables, if there's tables. You know, can you go outside and when the sun is shining? Can you, and if it's raining, how can you use the noise, which you said was very loud? How can you use that and incorporate that as a creative environment? You can create that as an icebreaker, right? In some way, so that it's not such an obstacle. It's actually soothing in some way, or whatever. I don't know. I'm just, saying, natural sunlight will automatically energize you way more than if you're in a closed environment, right? And there's no windows. But if you're in a room with no windows, you know what we've done? This is true. We've actually taken paper, we put it up on those walls, and we drew a window, and we drew trees, we drew flowers, and we pretended it was a landscape, right? So there are lots of ways that you can create an environment instead of going into a room saying, oh boy, no windows, dark, dungy, all this stuff. Think other than, outside the box. How can I create this and make this more inviting, right? So there's a lot of times where, I'm teaching and it is not a great, or I get interrupted. I got my whole room set up. It's great. And then someone comes in and says, oh, sorry, you got to move. We're going to place you in the computer room in the back hall. This has happened to me time and time again. And you know what I say? I say, all right, great. When we lose our mojo because we're right in the middle of everything, and so now we have to all pick everything up, throw it in the back room, but you know what? It's like, okay, how can you use that as a learning experience, right? So you know what I do? Yeah. I throw up, and my students get really upset. They feel as though they're not worth anything because they've just been thrown from one room to a next. But I PPCo them, Seraphine, and I say, okay, wait a second. What are the pluses? What did we learn? You know what I'm saying? And then we get out of that negative and into the positive. So think about that. And, you should always, if you can, and you may not be able to do this, but if you can get there 30 minutes or an hour prior to your session starting, you can really gauge the space and think of how can I do this. And if you have no paper and you have no markers or pens or crayons or anything to color with or to make something, then you go and you have this, I forget what they call it, but we do this. Oh, shoot. I forgot what to call it. But you can query the group and say things like, imagine this. Imagine that there are trees. Imagine that we're here or whatever. And, it's a visionary technique, right? And you're throwing them into the creative process and creating it that way. But anyway, just to go off on a tangent, sorry. But there's actually studies and research all about the creative environment. It's nuts how important it really, really is, And even in your home, do you have a creative space in your home for when you're creating? Then you could make it. You could make something. You could do something in all it has to be is a little corner, and it could be a creative environment, a creative space. And you can start to play with this and try to have fun in whatever way you can. And maybe you don't have lots of paper or crayons or whatever, but you can envision it. In some way. It could just be a table with a plant on it that it's designated that this is my creative space. This is where I'm going to be creative, right? So it might be that you're outside or whatever, You can do icebreakers with taking walks out into the community or out into nature. If everyone's crazy and they're not focused, you can send them out into nature, or you can have some kind of focusing type of icebreaker, I'm going to send you a couple anyway for your next session, and then you'll decide from there. You don't have to take them. You don't have to use them. But I'll give you a few suggestions, and you guys can go from there.
All right. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. It was so nice speaking with you.
Oh, it's nice to see you. And thank you again for helping Seraphine. It was awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right. Okay, maybe I should go so that she continues talking with you.
Well, I think we're just about done. Unless there's anything else, it's 20 to 10. So we've been talking for almost 2 hours, and I gotta get off to my next job. So, unless there's something else, is there anything else, Seraphine? Are we good or?
I think we're good to go, so you two can go to work. There's nothing more. If there's anything, I'll write you as usual.
Okay. Oh, thank you for sponsoring and being our financial mentor. I forgot to mention that. That's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. I'm so happy.
Thank you.
Oh, that's going to be so wonderful. I'm so excited to hear about that. I'll be posting all about it. You're our second financial mentor.
I'm so honored. I really wish to do more. You know, I'm so motivated by the program, and I really want to see it ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said I will do more. Yeah, to back up whenever it is needed.
And it's modeling the way. It's one of our leadership practices under the Leadership Challenge in that one methodology, and that's also exhibiting authenticity. Right? You practice what you preach, so to say, right? So it's all so good and wonderful. So I'll be posting all about you in the near future on social media.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. So then hopefully I'll speak with you Saturday. If not, it'll be Tuesday morning for sure. But I'm going to shoot for Saturday morning at 10 a.m. my time.
Okay, Mom.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good day. Rest of the day.
Thank you. Goodbye.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Oop.